Maze Runner: The Death Cure is directed by Wes Ball and stars all of the cast from the first two films, and this is the third and supposed final chapter in the Maze Runner trilogy. I think the Maze Runner franchise so far has been a pretty decent one considering the genre it is in, and I think that this third movie looked pretty good based on the trailers, and to be honest, I was kind of right. Dylan O'Brien once again returns as Thomas, and he is great in this, as he is in everything. I think Dylan O'Brien is really proving himself as a viable action star. He's also just extremely likable. He has this charisma that makes you want to get behind the guy, and you really do. You really believe that this guy is this badass hero, and you do buy the fact that he can do all these action scenes and all these stunts. You do believe it's actually him, and I believe he does do a fair amount of his own stunts, so that's fair enough. And obviously there is the huge thing that went down in this movie, that Dylan O'Brien was seriously injured on set on this film, which of course made it to be delayed a year. And though that was incredibly unfortunate, you can see that Dylan O'Brien really just wanted to finish this franchise and finish it off in a good way, as this is the franchise that gave him his career, and you can really get to see that he did have the passion for it to come back and just keep going at it until this movie was finished. And you know, doing it with such a good personality like that, it must have been a hard thing to do, and I give him all the credit in the world because he was fantastic in this film in every aspect. Also, special shout out to Thomas Brodie Sangster, who once again returns as Newt in this film. Newt is really great in this franchise. He always has been. I just really enjoy his personality. If you don't really know, he's the British one. He's really funny. He has a lot of good lines. His relationship with Thomas is really well fleshed out at this point, and I really like a lot of the moments that him and Thomas had together. There was a lot of great moments here, not just between them two with all the characters, but I'll get onto that later. But I think Thomas Brodie Sangster is one of the best actors this franchise has ever had, and it's going to be a shame to see this franchise end because I don't know how much of him we're going to see, but hopefully this will give him a lot more roles in the future. And Wes Ball returns for the third time to direct this film, and that's pretty incredible, you know, the fact that Wes Ball's come back for each one of these films, that he's been so directly tied to them. But he does come back for The Death Cure, and he does a fantastic job directing this film. I think this film is very well directed, actually. There's a lot of really cool camera work being used there to mould around these action scenes, which I'll get on into a sec. But I feel that the way that Wes Ball was able to direct this franchise, and also specifically The Death Cure, is really well done, and I don't think that many people can actually replicate what he does in some of the scenes here. You'll probably know what I mean if you watch the movie. But this is probably as well the best directed Maze Runner film, and that's a credit to Wes Ball right there. So the action sequences are the best of the franchise. This is really good stuff. The action is very much full front and center in this film. That is what this film focuses on. It is mostly an action film, and there is a lot of action in this movie. It's a very much an action-packed thriller, and I really loved all the scenes. There's so many moments that reminded me specifically of two franchises, being Mission Impossible and The Fast and the Furious. They are two film franchises that I feel that they may have taken pointers from for the action in this film, because there are so many scenes, like the opening action sequence with the train that you would have seen in the trailer. That's really fantastic, and also just going on towards the end, there's so many cool like scenes and fights that just make you think, wow, that's really well done, and it's just really satisfying action. It's not anything amazing particularly, but it's just stuff that makes you quite satisfied when watching it, and that's what you want in an action film. I'd say The Death Cure also has the best world building of the franchise. This film was really able to expand on the universe that is created here. Obviously, this is not going to be as big as the book series, because obviously they are books and they have a lot more time to develop these sort of things, whereas the film can only spend, you know, a minute or two on each thing. But I feel that this way the film was able to expand on the world by having all these different elements, these different things they hint towards, and even things they directly outright say to the audience. There are a lot of moments that really do show that this world is bigger than we first thought, and there's actually more going on there. And even though this is the final film of the franchise, it does kind of tie everything together with the world building that makes you think, yeah, this is where it's going, and this is how it's going to end. And it's a lot better that way, and I really enjoyed the way it was able to be tied together like that. Also, a character makes a surprise return in this entry, and I'm not going to say who it is out of spoilers, but let me just tell you, it's a great moment when it happens, and because this person is such a great actor, and he's been so good in this franchise so far, it was awesome to see them come back, and I'm glad that they were included for this final chapter. This film had a fantastic conclusion. This was one thing I didn't expect to happen, because a lot of these franchises, no matter what it is, the third movie, when it's like a trilogy, or even just a franchise as a whole, when they say a final movie's coming out, the ending has to be good, because otherwise what's the point? And what's the whole thing. It's not going to feel like it's had a good payoff. And I didn't expect this to have a good ending. I thought this was going to have a terrible, maybe open-ended ending, which nobody wants, really. And I have to say, I was so happy to be wrong, because the ending really did bring everything full circle for Thomas and everyone else. Everything came full circle here, and that made the ending that much more satisfying, because I was really expecting the ending to be completely off the wall and perhaps stupid and maybe even silly, but it really wasn't. The ending is really heartfelt, and also the ending just ties the whole franchise together and ends it off in a nice little bow, and that is exactly what I wanted for the end of this trilogy, and that's what I got. There are so many great emotional moments in here too, like some really deep emotional stuff that happens. Maybe I am looking a bit too much into it here with these deep emotional moments, but I felt that I was very invested in this film, and I felt that a lot of the moments that they tried to play off as emotional did pay off very, very well. And I really enjoyed all of those moments that I speak of, particularly between certain characters. Like, there's a lot of moments between Thomas and Newt which really hit home in some scenes. There are a lot of moments, and there's quite a bit of conflict going on. You've probably seen it in the trailers. There's a lot of conflict going on between Thomas and Newt in this film. And there's a particular thing that then happens which leads to this big climax. And it's just one big arc for those two. And it's such a well-defined arc as well. It's like, you couldn't miss it if you tried. But it's so really well executed. And I really enjoyed how they handled it between those two characters, because those two are the best of this franchise, hands down. So I do have a couple of negatives though. For one, Kaya Scodelario, I'm sorry, I've never liked you as an actress. I don't like you now. I felt in the first two Maze Runner films, she was very weak. In Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales, or Salazar's Revenge, as it was called here, she was awful. And in The Death Cure, she's not as awful as she was there, because luckily in this franchise, she gets to be a bit more understated. But oh my good god, I just can't stand her. I think she's really bland and awful. She just doesn't give off any kind of emotion or any kind of resonance to anything, and you just don't buy the fact that Thomas actually loves this girl, and you don't buy the fact that he will do anything to risk her. He'll risk his own life to save her, and I don't know why, especially when her character is so horrible in this franchise as well, just personality wise. I don't understand why this character has been written so poorly, and why they've chosen such a bad actress to portray her. I'm sorry, I'm sure you're a lovely person in real life, Kaya, but I just don't like you as an actress. I'm sorry. Also, there are so many plot conveniences in this film. Like, even though the movie moves along at a very brisk pace, and I feel that even though this movie is a 2-hour, 20-minute runtime, I don't feel it's too long. I think this movie is perfectly timed out. But there are a lot of movies that do go on for this time, and just, but they are able to move along without having any hindrances on the story necessarily. The Death Cure, not so much. I mean, there are plenty of moments in here where it's just like, yeah, that was convenient, or that was just placed there at that particular moment at that time for these characters to be there. And it does feel like, the movie is just kind of moving along and putting things just to make the story move along a bit easier, when realistically it shouldn't have happened that way. But I can't really complain. Every movie has plot conveniences, but it's just there are really obvious ones in this that will stick out and perhaps take you out of the movie at times, as it did with me. Overall, though, I found Maze Runner The Death Cure to be a very fun, satisfying movie. I didn't expect that going in. I was expecting this film to be fine, just decent, but I didn't expect it to actually be pretty good. I really had a good time with it. I enjoyed it, and I'm not even, I hated this genre. When these films were kind of at the peak, these teen novel adaptions, I hated them. Hunger Games I thought was very meh, and Divergent I can't stand. But Maze Runner was always the one that I was like, yeah, that's fine. The first two are fine. I know a lot of people do point towards the first one, but if it was up to me, I'd personally say that The Death Cure is the best of the franchise, and that is a great thing. The fact that they've had this trilogy and they've ended the trilogy on the best movie in the franchise, that is major props right there, and I feel that this movie is going to be a great ending for all the fans of the franchise who have been eagerly awaiting this film, and in my opinion, you won't be disappointed. So, did you guys see Maze Runner The Death Cure? If you did, let me know in the comment section below what you thought of it, what you liked, what you didn't. Let's get a discussion going about this movie in the comment section down below. And as always, guys, please remember to be respectful. And subscribe to The British Critic for more movie reviews and movie-related videos.